y'all coming back out. And Friday night, for some of you, it's kind of like a date night, I guess. And for others of you, I'm grateful for your sacrifice to be here, and I hope, again, to be somewhat edified in some way to help and benefit the church. So your book should be back there. You'll flip past lesson 1 or session 1 and session 2. You should get to session 3. I've updated all y'all's books with all the sessions up through tomorrow. And as I said when we first started, I hope that you'll get a little bit more clarity as we continue on in what this is all about. And tonight we'll get into a little bit more of the meat of the content and the specifics of where we're going to try to go in this. So the good news to start off tonight is you won't have a pre-test or a post-test on this session, okay? Yeah, right. But now the next session, the next hour, we will have one, so that's the bad part. But I got to keep your brain exercised, you know, and all that good stuff. But tonight, lesson is, or session is session number 3. Of course, this is kind of day or night 2, I guess, of the our time together. And this is entitled Casting the Vision for Positive Received Development at Beulah Baptist Church. Just to update you on where we were the last time, of course, it was real general. We talked about definitions of church administration, definitions of policy and procedure, definitions of written documentation. All 3 of those realms really define what we're going to try to do in this, in our time together. And so we discussed pretty much the general idea of all of this is transformation. It's transformation. It's also ministry. It's about ministry. It's about bettering the church, being more effective, more efficient. And so that's pretty much what we discussed last time. We just laid some groundwork on that idea. And so we also looked at Beulah Baptist Church, and we looked at where we've been. And we discussed some of the history of Beulah Baptist Church, some of the stuff I've discovered in documentation in the church that in the past the church has done, so before I was here in some cases. In other cases, since I've been here, these things have been developed. And we brought all that together and just hopefully in some ways had a little fun discussion on the history of Beulah Baptist Church. We looked at some numbers. The numbers pretty much by and large throughout the last 20, 30 years. 140 is where the Sunday school average has been for about 30 years. It's went down at times, it's went up at times, but 140 is pretty much the number that we arrive at. We looked at our gifts or contributions to the church. Man, almost quadrupled throughout the years. Back in 1980, 81, 82, church brought in $50,000. Now we're bringing in about $300,000. And so God has truly blessed the church, and in that there seems to be some sort of possible expectation in the church. And that is a part of this whole idea of thinking about policy and procedure and then really looking out beyond where we are now and saying, how can we lay a foundation now? Think about it, talk about it now so that the next generation that comes along will be able to pick something up tangible and say, this is a start on where we need to go in the future. And I took all of that information and in my own heart, in prayer and documentation, thinking through, even research, God just really gave me a vision on what all of you are here for, and then really all the church, I hope, will be brought through. And it's a vision that God has given to me. Pastor Ronnie Floyd said this. He said, you may go faster alone, but you will go farther together. You may go faster alone, but you'll go farther together. How true it is. Any one of us, and we all have these tendencies, don't we? I do. I really do. Here's my idea. If I'm going to do something, I'd rather you all just get out of the way and let me do it. You know what I mean? I don't know if you're like that at home, if you're like that at your job, but you know what? I know what I want to do. I don't need y'all's help. I think I can figure it out. And that pretty much, whether it's at home, at work, wherever, we kind of just want to take care of it ourselves and get it done because we're afraid somebody else can get in our way, somebody else is going to mess it up, and so we'd rather just go ahead and assume that risk and do it ourselves. But the reality is, and I think it's true just in a principle in life, if we're together, we're going to go farther. We're always going to go further. And that's what I desire at Beulah Baptist Church. Here's some words of wisdom that I discovered. One comes from a guy named Will Mancini. He's a church leadership guru. He said the starting point for vision, or in other words, for thinking about our church's future, is not deciding where we want to go or exploring what is working for other churches, but understanding how we are unique. The true point in the vision, I think, in a church is understanding how we are unique. We're not going to be the church down the road, and that shouldn't be our desire. We're not going to be Lone Oak First Baptist Church. We're not going to be Trace Creek Baptist Church. Those are good churches. They got great leadership, but they are who they are. We are who we are. And in that, we're going to be unique. God's thumbprint is on this church for a specific purpose. Of course, we all know what Solomon said in Proverbs chapter 11:14. He said, where there is no counsel, the people fall. But in a multitude of counselors, praise the Lord, there is safety. Here's what I see. When I think about the vision, this is pretty much the way I broke it down in 3 ways. My vision for the policy and perceived development of Beulah Baptist Church can be defined in these 3 ways. Number 1, you talk about uniqueness. It's going to be contextual. What I mean by contextual is that we're going to be unique. There are certain things that we have happened in our past. God has put us in Beulah, Kentucky. All right, everybody, of all the places on the planet, we're in Beulah, Kentucky. Can y'all believe that? God has put us in Beulah, Kentucky. We're not like Lone Oak. We're not like Mayfield. We don't have the people around us like they have. We're in Beulah, Kentucky. We are in a context on this hill that has a reach, has a past, has a present, has a future. Number 2, it's not only going to be contextual, but it's going to be collaborative. It's going to be collaborative. What's coming up in some of our small groups that we're going to be meeting with, and many of you perhaps been trying to figure that out or thinking about that, we're going to break all of you down into four individuals per group. And we're going to discuss some of those tonight. You've each been assigned a subcommittee. In that subcommittee, we'll sit down in a small group and we're going to collaborate, which basically means we're just going to talk about it. We're going to think about it. We're going to discuss some things. We're just going to try to figure out, is everything fine? Is there no changes that need to be made? Maybe there's a change here. Because I know that each one of you represent a family within the church, perhaps. You represent a bigger people within this church. You have a past, you have a present, you have a future, you have a vision. That's why you're here. It's to help me understand how we can be better. It's not Ian's dream. It's not your individual dream. It's God working through all of us, working together as we collaborate, think about, discuss where God can take us. And then lastly, I want to be cohesive. What I mean by cohesive is we need one document. We need one manual at least. No matter if it's 3 things in that manual or 30 things in that manual. I want something to be cohesive. I want us to bring it together. Our last session we had, I discovered 18 individual documents throughout the church that had some sort of policy or procedure to it. None of you would have found those. You wouldn't have known, well, I'm going to look in on the wall, or I'm going to go look at the foyer. You wouldn't have known. You would have said, I think we got something somewhere, but I have no idea. And in my opinion, that just falls short of our best. That falls short of what I think God would perhaps have for us. So something that would be cohesive, that would stick, that would include everything that we could think of, have, or even imagine. So first of all, when you think about contextual, I've already said some of this. I'm not going to beat the horse, so to speak, but I've got a definition up there that describes what contextual is. The second part I've got here is areas of concentration. Here's some questions that I think you and I can ask when we think about Beulah, Kentucky, on this hill. Number 1, first question, what are we doing? What is unique about Beulah Baptist Church? I can think of several things that we're doing that other churches aren't. We've got an amazing upward program. We are one of the only churches in a rural context in this area that has an upward program. We've got an amazing Awana program. Not every church has Awana. Bethlehem does. Not every one of them does. We got center shot archery. Lone Oak First Baptist has that. I don't know of anybody else that has that. What are we doing in this church? I want you to think about all the activities that we've got going in this church. No matter what it is, Sunday school, morning worship, what are we doing? Number two, where are we? Our demographics. I've got some demographics here. I didn't print them out for you because I'd have to go cut a few trees down, but yeah, I've got some demographics here based on the census that come out, most recent, of course. This demographic divides our area down. Here we are in Beulah, Kentucky. This is broken down into 5, 10, and 15 minute drives. So the first one is a 5-minute drive, the second one's a 10-minute drive, and the third one's a 15-minute drive. For most of us, 15-minute drive is that's a pretty good average of people that come to our church. So what I mean by that is you get in your car and it takes you 15 minutes to get here. Might be give or take. The 15-minute drive, there are a little over 200 people, population-wise, that could drive here in 15 minutes. Now, I'm not talking about the radius. If you talk about the radius, you get into Mayfield, and I don't know if that's particularly accurate because that's, of course, a bigger population. We have some people that drive from Mayfield, but not many, okay? And they're probably not going to be consistent if they're driving that far. It's just the way things, I think, are. Good, bad, or indifferent. So I think probably the better measurement is the drive. 5-minute, 10-minute, 15-minute drive. 15-minute drive, 200 people. I'm sorry, not 200 people, 2,000 people. And it's 200 people on average that go to church here. So it's 2,000 people within a 15-minute drive. 200 people is about how many we average? About 180, I guess, on the morning worship. And so the reason I say that is because consistently in church talk, a 10% average of reach within a city or population is a pretty good statistic to base your attendance on. So we basically are reaching that 10% by having 200 people here, or about 200 people on Sunday morning, out of the 2,000 people within a 15-minute drive. So we always got to keep that in consideration. Where are we? And then the third one, where are we going? And of course, I think that's within all of our hearts. Areas of concern, when you think about the context in which we are. Maybe it's a past pain that we've had. Maybe it's an opportunity. Maybe there's a need. Some questions to think about, the concerns that we may have. How are we dealing with these things? What is different about us than any other ministry in any other church? And we always got to remember the people that are involved. When you think about collaborating together, I've broken our church down into 5 ways. It could be 10 different ways, 15 different ways. This is just what I come up with to serve as some sort of guide for all of us. I've got it broken down into 1, ministry team. Number 2, a finance team. Number 3, a buildings and grounds team. Number 4, a missions team. And then number 5, a personnel team. Of course, all of you one of these will resonate with you where you are. You've been assigned one of these areas. Now you may be thinking, well, I'm on this. I have nothing to do with this. Well, that's just, God laid you on my heart. This is going to be your representation. And you're just going to help talk about maybe your own life, what you see, what could be done, what may be done differently. You think about ministry, I know that could be wide and broad, but when I come up with ministry, what I mean by that is pretty much a program area of concern. So it could be Awana, Center Shot, Upward, the ministries of the church that we have going on. Of course, finance takes care of itself pretty well, I think. Building and grounds, of course, there's always area of concern about buildings and grounds. You know, every one of these you could think about a million things, I'm sure. Missions, God's blessed our church with opportunities for missions. And just in my dealing with the church and people in the church, missions would be a good area for us to think about. What are some policy and procedures that could be in place? And then personnel. Of course, this involves all the staff, so to speak. But even beyond that, our committees, and I know that doesn't really fall in personnel, but just for the sake of this project, that's going to be kind of where we stick some of that. The committees we got in the church, what are they doing? Do they know what they're doing? Do they know what their responsibilities are? Or are they just on a committee? Or are we just in a position here because it just seems to be a good idea and this is what we've always done? So these are the 5 right here. And then of course cohesive, I already said that. Based on the evidence of past interactions with policy and procedure, like documents, it is desirable to bring together these and new into one cohesive document or manual. So through the contextual and collaborative work, we can draft, look at this, 3 C's, a cohesive manual. All right? Through the contextual look at our church, collaborating together as a team, I believe we can draft one cohesive manual. And so I've got the question, how are we going to achieve this? Based upon your assignments, we will meet and collaborate together, notice this, on the high points that could be included in a policy and procedure manual. I said high points because, I mean, look, I know this is limited, and part of it is because my assignment, and part of it is because I just want to get something in place, just to be honest with you. We could take years on this if we wanted to. So we're really putting the pedal down and just looking for the high points to get. So we won't cover everything, but Lord willing, we can cover some of the areas of concern that we may see, at least before us in the immediate. And it won't take long for us to do that. I know all these 5 areas, some of these, like I said, we've already addressed. We've already brought up before the church. Some of it we just got to bring together in a document. Others of it we got to pull together some new information. So then I've got here the second part, upon meeting together, after we meet together in the collaborative groups, the collaborative meetings that you've been assigned to, I will draft an administrative resource or policy or procedure, whatever you want to call it, if need be, by topping them up. If need be, I will guide the process by asking for your help in these things that have directly or indirectly affected my ministry. So I've got 2 things. I'm asking for your help, and I'm asking for your counsel. That's just what I'm at. I'm asking you guys to help me understand where we are as a church and how we can be better. There's nothing going to be, really should cause a lot of anxiety. It's not like we're taking over. I'm asking you, really, that's what this is about. I'm asking you for help. Because you have talked about things, or you've thought about things on the drive home after church or after a meeting. You've seen things in this church happen that you think, man, that's dangerous, and I don't know, I think somebody's going to get in trouble over this, or somebody's going to get their feelings hurt, or something, he said, she said is going to happen. You've seen things. And so I'm just asking you to help me figure some of this out. That's pretty much, if I was going to summarize this whole session, that's what it is. My vision is to guide along this process by really pulling you in to say, just help me figure this out. So after all our 5 subcommittees have met, discussed, and collaborated together, we will meet back, and that's going to be on that Friday, November the 30th. Of course, that's on your schedule, but that last time we meet, and we'll talk a little bit about that last meeting. Been a few changes in the schedule, maybe a few other ones, but when we meet on that last Friday, my goal would be to go through a first draft document, okay, to have a cohesive manual. First draft, it won't be perfect, but it's going to be a first draft, okay? That first draft, we'll pass it out, you'll look at it, I'll look at it, you'll see everything that all the committees might have talked about, thought about, brought to the table. Listen, it may not be much more than just bringing together everything that I found. If I take 18 documents and put them into a manual, that's going to be several pages worth right there, you see? But you're going to see it. And then you're going to, as a group, say, well, this might need to be a little different, this might need to be a little different. But we'll bring all that together. And then what I'm going to ask out of you is for you all to vote on this, to adopt this manual as a first draft manual, to eventually be presented to the church for consideration and or training. Note, since our time will be limited, these will include the high points. for our consideration. Second note, none of this will be a surprise to the church. You are assigned to be equipped to help lead the effort within this whole church. And the church will go through a thorough explanation and extended time to review anything that we bring together and or create. You all are not a mafia. You all are not pulled together to, take over the church, lay on top of the church, this new thing, and the church is going to have to get it, and you're going to have people offended. No, you all are helping me as a representation of the church to eventually say, this is what we come up with, and then the church will go through it. Okay? Your vote to adopt this will not be a vote for the whole church. So it's not like when you walk out of here and you may vote it down. All this, I'm asking for your help. You may say at the end of this, we don't need any of this in. And all I will say, because this is an academic project, I'll have to write that up. And I'll say, Beulah Baptist Church just did not want this. So, again, this is all a part of having you help me. Uh-oh. And now our technology went down. I don't think that's it. It might be it. So we know the devil doesn't like it, right? I mean, can we blame it on the devil? Let's see here. There we go. Boom. So on F, our primary objective is ministry transformation. I've laid out here 6 different points, and you'll see these again in your collaborative meeting. Our primary objective is ministry transformation. These 6 here, what we're going to do is we're going to establish strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So some of you that's been through this stuff before, you understand that as SWOT, S-W-O-T. Some of you that probably you've seen that in school. What's our strengths? What's some of our weaknesses? What are some opportunities? Is there any outside threats or even inside threats to church unity and transformation? Number 2, part of this transformation will be to demonstrate the problems that are within a church's control to change. Again, that is having that foresight that we talked about. Other than running up on conflict and being reactive, we're proactive. So we think about, is there anything that we could control by adopting now? Okay? Number 3, we're going to act as a mirror for people to see clearly who they are as opposed to what God has called them to be. A part of a manual would be to see what God is doing and to point people in that direction. Number 5, to work with God to create a healthy church. And then number 6, to mediate between Christ's kingdom and the systems that oppose it. And so we just seen, I'll say that the devil done it. The devil just shut our system down here, opposing our system. You and I as a team will mediate between Christ's kingdom and Satan's kingdom that opposes it. So now I want to talk about each little subcommittee with all of you in here. Each subcommittee needs to begin to internally process some issues and solutions. So if you've been assigned to the ministry team, that's what we're going to talk about here, the ministry subcommittee. All right? Here are some focus points that obviously we'll probably discuss. Upward basketball and cheerleading, things like registration. Is there any issues? Maybe there's not. Maybe things are fine. But if there is, now would be a good opportunity to think, well, man, maybe we could adopt this so that we're covered. Center shop ministry, kind of the same idea. Is there anything going on that could be adopted now that might help us in the future? Same thing with Awana. In the Awana program, Brother Curtis, we've already talked about some of these things because there have been issues that have come up. And some of these are issues that just he would deal with or I would deal with that many of you wouldn't know about. Now, some of these issues that have already come up that we'll talk about, but just by an example, what happens whenever you charge somebody or when somebody is supposed to pay $25 and they don't ever pay? how do you approach that? Do we have something in place that says, you know, if you don't pay, this is what happens, or, you know, you don't get your materials, you don't get anything, or do we just say it's perfectly fine, some people have to pay, some people don't have to pay, there are no rules, just right? And so we've already talked about sort of an invoice kind of system. If somebody comes and registers and they're supposed to pay, if we had a policy written up that says if you don't pay within this time and you don't communicate that to us to say you need a scholarship from somebody, then we as a church will send an invoice to you at your home address or hand it to you to say, this is what is required of you. Somebody's phone ringing, I think. No, that's okay. So an invoice system, something like that. I don't know, but that's something we talked about. Youth ministries, Brother Alex, we've already pretty much, in some ways, made that policy up. The church has looked at that already, and I think that's good. That's been an issue that's needed to be dealt with for some time. And then the children's ministry, same thing. Camps, recreation, things like that. The funding or whatnot. The finance subcommittee. Some of you have been assigned to the finance subcommittee. The focus points, things like yearly budget, reimbursements. Are those issues? Accounting protocols, church accounts. I thought of at least, how many I got here? Five different accounts that we have. A general, we got a building, we got a women's fund, we got a mission fund, we got a youth fund, we got a children fund. Are all those fine, or do we need to consider?
I didn't know we had a women's fund. Hey.
Yeah, I think we do, doesn't Kayla's got the Kayla's got the. So see, there we go. We just found a 19th. This one's a fund. So we got a fund. So see, I mean, there's things like that out there. You see, that's a real perfect example. We have things. Some people know about them, some people don't know about them. And so these are issues we just need to consider. Building and grounds subcommittee. Of course, some focus points there. Building and ground usage. We've already got a policy. We probably just need to look at that and clean it up if need be. Building request. When people request the buildings, just making sure that we at least have something down in writing that will help us, so that nobody gets mad at Brother Ed or whoever for this, that, and the other. We all know that would be enough to cause people to go and probably their heads blow off, you know, and double book or something. Well, I thought he was just supposed to know. I'm a church member. He's supposed to know I got the bill. Never Thanksgiving, you know, this, that, and the other. Well, I mean, probably need to at least have something in writing that says this is what you got to do to get that. Maintenance protocols, things like approvals, etc. Decorations, arrangements, etc. We've kind of, Miss Coretta, of course, she's on this subcommittee. We've already had some discussions about this. Things like painting and you know, getting church approval, not getting church approval. Is there a certain amount of money that you know, the church would just give that committee the authority to spend and not have to bring everything before the church to vote on? Or does the church want to vote on everything? These are things that probably just need to be discussed and put down before somebody loses their cool over it and before something bad happens. And the church can approve that in one manual again, and then it's fair game. Mission subcommittee. Of course, some of you are on that. The focus points that we consider in our discussion is going to be things like mission trips, mission trip funding from the mission account. What does that look like? We've already, some ways, run across that. Thank the Lord, things were fine. But, we'll discuss things like, a set amount to give to everybody that goes on a trip, or percentages to each person to make it fair across the board. Some mission trips are $4,000. Some mission trips are $600. Some mission trips are fully funded out of the mission account. Those that go to Africa or, Poland aren't going to be able to be fully funded. So what's going to be the fairest that we could get? That's what I'm getting at. And that could very easily be decided in a meeting. And of course, those will be things we'll discuss, and then of course will be brought up in a manual. Things like what does the church want to what's the word I'm looking for? Endorse. What kind of mission trip is the church going to endorse? What I mean by that, is it okay for Encarico to pop up and one of the person pop up and say, View the Baptist Church is sending us on a mission trip, without the church really sending them on a mission trip? You know what I mean? So having something in place that just says, this is the procedure if you want the church's blessing. You see what I'm saying? If you want the church's blessing to pray for and support you, even if it is by prayer, which is better than a penny, even if it's by prayer, the church does this to get you there. And of course, this would be pretty simple. Church could just vote on it. We endorse this mission trip to Africa. We endorse this mission trip to Guatemala. We endorse this mission trip to Poland, whatever that might be. And that will reduce the opportunity for just anybody to pop up in the church to say, well, I'm going to Disneyland for a week, and then I'm going to head over to who knows where. And then everybody's like, I just don't know about that, And so, it's just some simple things. And it just holds everybody, I believe, accountable. And I've often told people on this issue, and I'm not going to beat this thing to death, but any one of you can go anywhere in the world you want to. I mean, I'm not going to stop you, and the church is not going to stop you from going. You see what I'm saying? But what I'm talking about is if we're going to rally around you and really support you and wholeheartedly give our all to you, we got to have some kind of direction. We got to have some kind of information. We got to have more than just going on the trip. I mean, if I go to Istanbul or wherever, I mean, that's your freedom. That's my freedom. I can go, take off time and go. You can go. But if I want your blessing, I believe I've got to come before you, and I've got to say, God is calling me. God is calling us. God is calling me to be a part of a group, and we're going to share the gospel of Jesus Christ, and we're going to go serve in an orphanage, or we're going to go, clothe the poor. This is our go, and for you to share that, communicate that, and not just be sort of backdoor, side door stuff, to whereas people second guess, or it causes a lot of distraction sometimes. That's what I'm getting at, and so that's what a mission subcommittee would take care of. The personnel subcommittee, some of this work has already been done because we went through this. That was about a year ago. We created some sort. Again, it was very reactive, and I don't like that. But we created a pastor, youth director, and children's director, like job description that give a real general overview. And I feel like those were good, but I feel like those were reactive. We were doing that because we had experienced an issue. And so I was scrambling, I was trying to do my best to say this is going to be an accountable document. The church looked at it, if you were here and remember that. But I still got those. And it would just be good for all of us, for the personnel subcommittee, just to walk through, just to look at and say these are good. And for us to bring that up again and say these are good, okay? And for us to say this is something that would keep everybody in check, okay? Of course, same thing I mentioned earlier, the committee descriptions. I think it would be good I know they're volunteers, not paid, but we got a nominating report, church that we bring up every year. I would love just to type out 2 or 3 sentences, if nothing more, over each committee that we have and say, this is what you do, okay? This is what you do. So that a committee would know. And again, this is part of the discussion. I just want to be real with you. Feel free to speak up. I don't mean to talk the whole time, that's for sure. I'd rather not have something than to have it just to have it. You see what I'm saying? If we're not going to go by it and the people on the committees aren't going to be involved, or not going to be on call or whatever to help, we just need to dissolve it, don't we? I mean, I mean, I'd rather be a church that has integrity. What I mean by integrity, to go by it and for it to be real, than just to have it, you know. And so maybe looking at our committees and thinking about some descriptions on these committees, gonna be very simple, but it'll be contextual for us to think through. You know, maybe the committees need to be given some kind of financial approval. Maybe that will help them. So, you know, the church could vote to give every committee $250 limit. They get a $250 limit to spend without having to worry about anybody getting upset. If that's in a document, the church approves it, then it's set. If anybody gets mad, you say, well, this is what we voted on. This isn't a document. If the church doesn't want to grant that, we don't, but at least we'll explore it. Okay? And so that's why I've got here 250, 500. We kind of have that in process now. But sometimes we still question it because we don't have it in writing. It wasn't too long ago I got a text message. Ian, how much, I forgot the exact words, but basically, how much does the church allow me to spend on behalf of this ministry before it's got to be brought up before the church? Well, I'm scratching my head and second guessing myself thinking, well, I know the maintenance is $1,000, I think, and I don't know about the $500 limit, and I thought, well, I forgot what we talked about that one business meeting. So I'm throwing my hands up thinking, well, I don't know how much you got. You know, just go by it and we'll ask for forgiveness, I guess, until we can meet and get something.
Well, being on the finance team, we get approached a lot of times about, you know, discretionary spending. And
Yeah.
it almost puts us sometimes in a tight spot to where our personal preference is we don't care. But from an authoritative position, we don't have any authority other than what the church has already approved. So it kind of puts us in a, you know, precarious situation where we don't know what to tell the individually because,
Yeah.
you know, it's not really up to us. It's more of, and something defined would definitely help define what, you know, what the finance committee's job actually is, because it's not, there's no authority there.
Right.
The church has given the authority by approving, you know, what the committee come up with themselves, but past that, it kind of puts us to giving our personal opinion, and that's no better than anybody else's personal opinion in the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like guidelines and boundaries.
Yeah.
Any guidelines of what they're assigned to do, and boundaries of what they can do.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah. I think getting that down, you know, just a hard number, whether it's 250, 500, I mean, whatever, you know, would be best. And of course, we know we're going to talk about some of this stuff, and I'll mention it now and mention it again because it's a key point. But everything that a manual would be, and many of you that study policy and procedure, you know way more than I do about this, but the really cool thing about a policy and procedure manual that ought to just make everybody breathe a little easier, because I know sometimes this can get thick, you know, because you're thinking about people's personal feelings, you're looking at the past. Well, we ain't done that before, you know, well, I don't. The one thing about a policy and procedure manual, well, the beauty of it is it's always revisable. It's always revisable. What I mean by that is, at any given business meeting, the church can say, I want to revise this section of the policy and procedure manual. And through a church vote, it can be revised. It's not like the Bible. The Bible can't be revised. It's set forever. So the reason I say that is, okay, God's blessing us. $300,000 is what we bring in. Praise God. Man, we just need to thank God right now in our hearts for that. That's amazing that God will let us do that. What if we go down to 150,000? What if we go down to 100,000? Oh, now all of a sudden, these spending limits, you see what I'm saying? They change. But all you got to do, if you've got it set, is say, you know, we're going to have to revise that committee spending. It can't be 250 anymore. We're going to take you down to $50. And of course, I thought, well, what am I going to buy $50? Well, not much, because we're not taking in much anymore. You see, and so as long as we can keep some kind of control, and that's why you guys are in here, guys and girls, right? Because it's not going to be Ian's manual. It's going to be the church's manual. The end can be gone, you can be gone. But if we've got it here and we get a system to operate by, then this thing keeps going. You see what I'm saying? And it helps us all. And I believe that's it on this time. So any questions on this? Any other questions? To recap, contextual, collaborative, cohesive. Contextual, Beulah is Beulah. And many of you know that better than me. Beulah's Beulah. There ain't another Beulah out there. And we've got these contextual things like coming to the finance team, asking for approval, the programs we have. Collaborative, 5 ministry areas, 5 areas of concern. We'll meet and discuss those. And then cohesive, Lord willing, we can bring together one document that will represent this church, and that throughout the next several months or whatever the case may be, the church can look at, examine, chew on, think about, and then the church has every right to change anything in it that we give. You see what I'm saying? I mean, none of this is taking away authority from the church at all. But many of you know just as well as I do, you got to find some place to start. And so this is just a starting point. As Dr. Larry Purcell would say, we're the punch, and the church can be the counter punch. But somebody's got to throw a punch in order for there to be a counter punch. And so somebody's got to throw it out there for there to be some sort of consideration or whatever the case may be. And I think by and large over time, people would appreciate, I hope, something like this. Again, you've got your schedules. I put those in the front of your thing. You'll notice the committee's there. Of course, hopefully by now you've understood, and then we'll take a little break here and get started up maybe a little early and get out, obviously early tonight from our scheduled time. But you've got training session number 7, which will be actually tomorrow. We'll get to that after we get done with number 6, of course. The ministry subcommittee will meet. Obviously, when the ministry subcommittee meets, that'll only be